Good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday Mull for Monday, the 26th of September. Following Robert Murray McShane, today we read Ezekiel chapter 29, a prophecy against Egypt. And toward the end of the chapter, verse 19, the Lord says the following through his prophet. He says, "Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am going to give Egypt to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and he will carry off its wealth. He will loot and plunder the land as pay for his army. I have given him Egypt as a reward for his efforts, because he and his army did it for me, declares the sovereign Lord." Now, the interesting thing about that is Egypt and Babylon had absolutely nothing to do with God. They were not followers of God. They were not like Israel, who were supposed to be worshipping God. They didn't have the law or anything. They were pagan nations. They had their own gods whom they followed and whom they trusted and who they worshipped. And yet God says, I am using Nebuchadnezzar and I'm judging Egypt, and this is going to be my work. And as I read that, I thought of the machinations that there are in the world today and have been throughout the ages as kingdoms rise and fall and empires expand and contract, and the situation changes, and sometimes we stop and think, what on earth is going on? And what this says is that behind it all is God working his purpose out. And for me, two things arise from that. The one is that we end up saying, God, what are you doing? It makes no sense. One looks at what's going on in Europe with the war in Ukraine and the emerging ultra-right-wing coming to power in Italy, and all of these changes. You think, God, what are you doing? It doesn't make sense. And in a sense, God says, well, it doesn't need to make sense to you. I'm working my purpose out. And we just have to trust that God is in control. And that's the second thing, is that in the midst of all the chaos, and sometimes the world can be a really messy place, and in the midst of it all, we can step back and say, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me, but I can have the confidence that nothing's going to happen that is beyond God's plan. God is in control. He is in control of my life because I'm trying to follow him, but he's in control of all of history and the whole world as well. And therefore, in the midst of the chaos, and as one's life can sometimes get very complicated, not just international politics, just the toings and froings and the upheaval of one's own life, you can stop and say, I don't understand it, but I do know that God is in control, and he can use all the forces in the world, all the nations, all the kings, all the empires, everything is under his sovereign control. He is the sovereign Lord. And therefore, I don't understand, but I trust. And God is working his purpose out as year succeeds to year. And therefore, I don't have to worry, I don't have to panic. I just have to trust and keep as close to him as I can. So take courage from that and know that we are blessed.